Hello everyone, today I have great pleasure to speak with Yana, who is based in Singapore, and she is a heart-centered spiritual teacher, accredited life coach, international speaker, global facilitator. Hi Yana, it's a great pleasure to have you. How are you today?
Hi Ed, it's really a pleasure to be here with everyone.
So Yana, can you share a little bit more about how you become a Singaporean and what is your story?
Yes, of course. I look very Singaporean, right? Originally, I was born in Russia, in St. Petersburg, and it just happened this way. I think when you're 20 and crazy, and you think that you can conquer the world, and you're totally reckless. I just got a one-way ticket, and I went first to Europe, and I lived a few years in Switzerland. Then went to New York, lived a few years there, trying to pursue an acting career at some point. And then just life. It happens that life brought me to Asia, and it was Singapore in 2008, actually, and I landed here.
Excellent. And what part of Switzerland have you lived in?
In Zurich. In
Zurich. Okay, so yeah. Zurich and then
New York and then Singapore. Okay. Yeah.
It sounds like an amazing journey.
Yes, what is the story, right? I think that the turning point was about 10 years ago when I was already in Singapore, and I just remember that part of my life when the whole hell broke loose. And I think people can relate to this one way or another. We all have been there one way or another. So in my case, it was just a place where my marriage was falling apart. I mean, falling apart so bad that my husband was dying at that time. And that was like I was in a foreign country and I had no money of my own. There was no job really available for me. And because I was also a trailing spouse for a long time, so there was no really accreditation I have had at that moment that anyone would hire me in Singapore. So I was like at this point where like everything was falling apart. And of course, also because of the intensity of this experience, I was definitely not in a good mental and emotional and physical state. So it felt like the end of life at that point. And that was the turning point. And as they say that sometimes we need to have really bad breakdowns to have a breakthrough. So that was the turning point for me, where I just realized that I have to look for light in my life, and I need to really take life in my hands and figure out what to do. And that was the very first step that brought me into the coaching. That was the out of all titles that you read. So that was the very, very first one when I started working with people. And of course, first, usually when you go into the journey of inner work, it all starts with your own healing. So everyone does, but especially if you want to be a healer, therapist, or a coach, it's always about your own healing first. And so I had to go through years and years of trying to figure out who am I and heal myself. And then just step by step, as you build up your own vitality and you build up your own mental strengths and you find your own inner peace, you just naturally, it's a natural process, you're able to hold space and help more and more people. And then it just evolved into what it is today, which is students from more than 30 countries. And we have been running all kinds of programs all over the world and welcoming people of all backgrounds.
How do you do so? Do you have like different languages, or you are focusing on one language? And how do you find them, or how they find you?
Yes, that's a very good question. Well, right now I teach primarily in English. It is just a few months ago I went in the Russian market because originally I'm Russian, right? But it just took me a while to actually even wanting to do that. So I am just starting working with Russian.
I feel you.
You understand, right? So sometimes it's a little bit too close to home. But I am doing it because it's also a big part of my journey, right? So I want to fully reconcile with my roots and my culture, where I'm coming from. However, when I say students from more than 30 countries, it's all in English. And actually, interesting enough, it's all started last year during COVID. So it was this rapid quantum leap when for most people probably their professional life was falling apart. And for me, it was really, again, very natural way of doing it. Actually, I just came out of my own practice and I spent a lot of time at the monastery because it's also a big part of my spiritual practice. I have a very strong connection with the Tibetan schools and just the way how my life unfolded. I I know many lamas and yogis and monks who are living in forests and mountains, and I spent a lot of time with them. So, and I just came back from one of those visits, and then lockdown happened in Singapore, and the whole world just went mad. And actually, I didn't even had much intention of doing those kind of teachings for various reasons again, but because of what was happening in the world, my friends just asked and I was like, okay, let's start with program for friends. And so the first one, it was called M5 program. I mean M5 because it was a 4 weeks program. And so we do it was me, men, money, magic, marathon. So because the first one was for women only, and that was just 20 women who are my friends who came for the first program, and then they just loved it. And then they invited their friends, and they wanted another program, and then friends invited friends, and then it became like this massive referral type of programs, right? And because Singapore is so international and there are just people from all over the world here, that's how it ended up being 30 countries, because they started calling friends who live in Europe or they live in US. And at some point, I remember we had in one class, we had people everywhere from Canada to Australia. So it was really difficult to schedule Zoom calls because of the time difference. Right? Yeah. And so that was just, and because I teach about practical spirituality, so I'm taking the religious aspect out of it. And that's why also I remember like at once we had people of all religions, which was really interesting. We had Christians, Buddhists, Muslim, Hindu, atheist, and everyone else in one group. And it just phenomenal when you look like on the Zoom screen and it's like a UN meeting. You have everyone there. And then eventually we opened those programs to also men, right? So we started as women, but then it became like gender mixed. And that has been just really, really powerful experience also for me in terms of holding space for so many nationalities. And again, because I have an experience of living in Europe and US, and I have been before COVID at least, frequently visiting those places. So I can see the lifestyle of people and also how they do businesses, right? And of course, absolutely no judgment, no criticism for anyone. But for someone who is coming from Asia, I always had this feeling, well, it's a little bit too slow. Like everything is just slow. So in Asia, just to give you also an example, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but people are available all the time. So let's say if I need to talk to my accountant who I have on my WhatsApp, I can message him at 3 a.m. and there's a very good chance that he will reply because he's still working, right? So now I'm not saying it's a good work ethic. And probably people would say, well, that's like slavery. But I think for entrepreneurs who love what they do, and for me to be an entrepreneur, you have to love what you do. Otherwise it is slavery. So when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. Like I am happy to stay up at night, sometimes at midnight, and just do something around whatever I need to do, right? Because it just gives me so much pleasure to do this. So I think that's important. So Asia is very active.
Yana, you mentioned like you had your 5am coaching program. So can you share how your coaching program looks today, and who are the people who usually work with you?
Yes. Well, right now we actually do continue doing the M5 because it has been so popular again. And it's also very much a community program because then the graduates come as the moderators and it becomes and we have like one Facebook group also where everyone shares everyone. So it becomes this massive process. It's almost like a retreat. And that's what people are saying, that it feels like a full immersion retreat, even though it is online. But it feels like you are actually together with those people in one space. And then the other one, which I really love and that I'm working with, is program which is based on Gene Keys. So I'm not sure if people know it or heard about it, but it's a you could say it's a spiritual profiling, in my understanding right now, of the most comprehensive level that is available at the moment. And so what I do, I just help people to go through the sequences. So there is like an activation sequence, just about your inner genius. There is a Venus sequence, which is all about relationship. And then there is a prosperity sequence, which is all about business and your place in the society. How can you play to your biggest gifts while serving the greatest number of people? And we do this like also in a communal kind of online type of program.
Okay, and Yana, for people who are curious about your work, what is the best way to learn more and about your program and reach out to you?
The best way right now is actually Instagram. So the website is processing. So it's Instagram, just Yana Fry, very simple, very easy to find.
So how you re-energize yourself? How do you find that time for you in your, you said like you have a very organized schedule, and what kind of habits you actually have to, in order to stay healthy and serve others?
I have my own practice. I am a teacher after all, right? So I try my best to walk the talk. And when I tell people, do practice, find time for practice every day. So of course, I feel that I have to honor it myself, and I just try to do it as much as I can. So just to give you an example, when I do hold space for those big events, I do just my practice morning and evening, and it could be anything from half an hour to 2 hours each time. I just have to get up early and go to sleep later, right? But it primes your mind. I mean, when I say practice, it could be many different things, right? And we can personalize it for each person, but it's largely mind training. When you just prime yourself for the things you want to prime yourself, and then you can decide what it is.
And my last question is, so what will be your advice for all those people who are still not like sure how they can actually go through that process to get that clarity and be happy with what they do and who they are?
Great question. And I would say first, please don't wait until you have a breakdown. That's the thing. So don't. It's you can have breakthrough without that.
Thank you for
right?
sharing
I think that's important, because sometimes people just wait until everything falls apart. And it's actually a big part of my teaching that we want to make changes before you crash your car into the wall. And the first thing is just being honest with yourself. Just being really honest. And when you kind of look at your life and examine your life, and under life, I particularly mean your professional life and your personal life, and just ask yourself if you're genuinely happy in the situation you're in. And you will know the answer. And if you are not, then you need to have enough courage to take actions. Because if you don't, you're going to have a breakdown eventually. And we don't want that.
Yana, thank you so much for being a new member, for this interview, and for sharing your incredible story. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.